So this is a demo on Azure Fundamentals. So in this module, you will learn different tools for Azure administrators to manage the infrastructure. So as you are already aware that you need to create an account in Microsoft Azure portal so that it will be giving you an subscription ID. So once you are a subscription holder, you get a free tier infrastructure. And if you want to create or deploy some sort of items which are like having some cost, then at the end of the day they will release the invoice statement, and based on that you have to pay. So we'll be learning about those as well, like how to create an account and how to manage the subscription or the tenant, and like how to manipulate or how to maintain the bills as well. And also we'll get to know about Azure portal and cloud shell. So Azure portal is the web UI platform through which you can manage the Azure resources, and also it is having the cloud shell. So if you want to go to the old school way, if you want to don't if you don't want to go through the UI, then you can use Azure cloud shell to maintain the same functionality. And also we'll learn like how to use the Azure CLI commands using Cloud Shell. So Azure has introduced several command line interface modules for different Azure resources, and we'll also see like how you can work on this Azure CLI. And it has also an integration with Azure PowerShell. So as we already know that Windows has PowerShell, and it is a default installed application in our system in any of the Windows OS. So we'll also know like how you can run PowerShell script using Azure CLI. And also like we'll know like different Azure PowerShell modules, data type, regex, and syntaxes to manipulate or to modify the output of PowerShell, how you can save that into different type of formats, how you can run the loops, and how you can run the function based on the Azure modules. And also we will learn which is Azure Resource Manager. So Azure Resource Manager is like as soon as you create the account, you will be assigned a resource manager, and there will be inside that resource manager there will be different kind of subscription or different kind of accounts. So which is mostly used by large organizations, right? Due to the huge infrastructure they have. So we will get to know about resource manager as well. And then the main part will be like the first most important part will be like virtual machine planning. For example, like if you have an existing infrastructure and you want to replicate the same into your Azure platform, then how you can plan the architecture. So it might be related to the migration. For example, you are running the systems into Hyper-V or Zen or VMware, or even physical machines, right? And you want to migrate the whole thing into Azure. So how you can plan, how you can segregate based on the applications. So you can plan that. And then how you can create virtual machines. So definitely you will not be doing like you will not be creating virtual machines like from the scratch, and using the GUI. So there will be some orchestration methods that will learn as well, like to create different type of virtual machines on a large scale, and also to install different kind of application, and how to use image virtual machines, and from that deploy different or other virtual machines from that single image. So we will learn that as well. And that is what I was saying, like creating VM using PowerShell and Azure CLI, and also ARM. So ARM, as I said, like this is like the resource manager, and it will be having the templates, right? So template, as the name suggests, it already has the pre-configured values. So you just need to modify, for example, like what is the name of the system, how much RAM you want to give, and stuff like that, right? So using that template is a lot of time because it is already having the values in it, and using that template you can deploy the systems rather than going the conventional way of creating virtual machines. And we'll know like how to maintain the availability of the virtual machines, how to create uptime for the applications which are running into the virtual machines, and how to use the virtual machine extensions DSC, PowerShell DSC, and custom extensions. So these are also used in maintaining those systems, or run some upgrades or run some modulations for those. We will get to know about that as well. And then we'll go for storage account. So as we already know, like Azure is also providing the storage. That is one of the part of platform as services. And what is the pricing tier we have for different kind of storage account? What all different type of storage types we have? For example, blob storage or large scale storage or always on storage, something like that. And we also have different storage accounts. We'll get to know how to manage those accounts. And there is called SaaS token. So SaaS token is also used for the API calls to manage your storage account. And how you can create a storage using the ARM and CLI, same way we are creating the virtual machines. So using command line interface also, you can create storage accounts. You can assign those storage accounts to the user into organization or to a team, something like that. So we will get to know about that as well. Azure Blob Storage, as I was saying. So Azure Blob Storage is a public storage which you can even enable for your customer or for your internal employees based on the security features that are implemented into it. And how to upload block files. What are block files? And what is page blob? And also we'll learn like how to create blob storage using PowerShell, ARM, and CLI. So same thing you can do several ways. So there are like basically four ways. One would be the conventional way of logging into the portal and using the GUI options. And the next, if you are going for the automation and if you are going for the scripting part, which will take less time. So in that case, you can go for PowerShell and the ARM templates and Azure CLI. So these are different methods of doing the thing, but the resultant would be the same. So this is completing the storage account part. And then we'll go for the Azure files. What kind of file structure are used in Azure, and how you can use different file structure using the same, like PACRM and Azure CLI. How you can manage those file structure and you can automate them. And then there will be like the storage account and blob and Azure files, as I already said. And then we'll go for the networking part. So as we talk about the networking part, the fundamental things which comes to the picture is VNet peering. So VNet is the logical network segmentation you can create in Azure cloud based on the regions or based on the global availability zones. So through VNet, whatever communications are happening within your system, like through whether it is intranet or whether it is internet, so that communication would be happening using VNet. So we will learn like what is VNet peering, so and how it works, and we'll be going through a lab demo as well in Azure portal or using PowerShell, how to create a VNet, how to create the different VMs into those VNet. And let's say to how can two separate VNet can communicate with each other, how the firewall policy would be there, what would be the network access control list, so that you can specify from which network subnet or into which port, yeah, the communication will be happening, right? For example, like when we're doing RDP, default port is 3389. For DNS, the default port is 53, right? So whenever you are deploying a system, you should specify the networking part, right? That is also very important. So we will get to know that VNet configuration as well, and VNet to VNet connection. So for example, like as I said, you have different VNet into different availability zones, but you want to make a connection into that. For example, it can be a secure tunnel, it can be a VPN, etc. So we will get to know about that as well. And there will be a demo session. Practically, we'll be doing into the Azure portal. And there is express route connection. So express route is also used for getting the connectivity, between the on-premise and to Azure systems. Like how express route works and how you can set it up. Okay, so there will be a session for that as well. So this is like conclude the networking part mostly. And then comes the monitoring part, right? So whenever you are running any service into the infrastructure, you also have to implement the monitoring part so that it triggers alert or triggers mail or whatever way we'll configure, like let's say a system is utilizing more than 80% of the resources, the CPU or the RAM or the IOPS is more, or let's say from internet a mild DDoS is happening, so many requests hitting towards certain port, something like that, right? So these are all the very common alerts we get into our day-to-day activities. We will learn like how to set up Azure monitoring part as well. So for that we don't need to go for any third party tool, right, which are being used for monitoring purpose. So Azure also gives that option, which you can set it up for your Azure resource groups. And we'll learn like how to set up the Azure monitoring that will trigger the alerts, and how Azure alert works, how it reaches to the administrators, and how the alerts can trigger runbooks. For example, let's say you are running 4 VMs, and 4 VMs are part of a cluster, and a service is running on top of the cluster, right? And you have maintained in such a way that whenever any alert is getting triggered, for example, like the alert is like 80% CPU utilization, you are maintaining the threshold as 80% CPU. So whenever create a new VM, so that the load is getting stabilized, and the utilization getting should get reduced, right? So you can even trigger runbooks based on the alert. So runbook are nothing but like as the name suggests, right? So the runbooks are nothing but that would have some sort of script, or that would have some sort of template, through which it can create new resources, or even it can create several other items based on the configuration whatever would be related with the alert, right? And how you can automate the alert generating scope. And also a new part is like log analytics, right? So log analytics also provided by Azure. For example, let's say you want to go for some historic data search, right? So let's say you have a requirement like what was the utilization 1 month ago or some time ago into this resource group. So in that case we need to go through log analytics, so that will tell you that due to this time and due to this applications, or due to this operations, the utilization was more, right? So we will get to know log analytics as well, which helps us to plan for the scaling up process for the applications or for the infrastructure. So that sums up the Azure monitoring part. So now if I talk about the projects, we will learn like how we can deploy a .NET application into Azure application load balancer. So load balancer something which is again Azure proprietary, and that will ensure the uptime and high availability for your VM. So if any VM goes down, then also your applications will be up and running throughout the availability zones based on which you have configured. And also we'll deploy a SQL always on cluster using ARM. ARM is like, as I said, Azure's resource manager. So, and SQL in the sense like it would be Microsoft SQL, and that will be running on a cluster. So we'll learn that project as well. And the third part would be migrating VMs from on-premise to Azure. So that I have already said, like you have your running VMs that can be physical machines, that can be virtual machines running on different hypervisors, for example, like Hyper-V or Xane or OpenStack, whatever. And those things are running into those hypervisors, and you want to upload them or you want to migrate them to Azure, and how you can plan that, what will be the challenges on how you can do the segregation. So we'll go for that project as well. And the lab setup, we need a very good internet along with a desktop and laptop, obviously. And we need an Azure account as well, for which you don't have to pay anything. It is like a free of cost. And Visual Studio Code should be installed into your laptop. So that is pretty much required to get integrated with your Azure accounts. And using just Visual Studio Code, you can run the PowerShell modules, you can run the Azure CLI commands directly into the Azure cloud itself. So Visual Studio Code is also required as a system requirement. And these are the additional course resources. So these are like the official documentation provided by Microsoft. You can go through that as well for some better understanding. And we'll be going for the mock interviews, like what kind of questions are being asked for this Azure fundamental and this Azure DevOps, or even for Azure certifications as well. And you will get a course completion certificate. Thank you for attending this demo.